All right. Well, welcome everyone. Want to welcome you to our ABM panel discussion today. My name is Matson Shirley, and I'm joined by Kevin White, and we are your hosts today. And also happen to be fellow marketers in crime at Common Room, where our AI agents are helping go-to-market teams engage and convert the right people at the right accounts at the right time. The central topic for today is account-based marketing, also known as ABM. That shouldn't be a secret to probably all of you at this point in time, because the category is very well established. And I couldn't be more excited about who we have on our panel today, between Mason Cosby, Katie Berg, and Sangram Vajre. Seriously, it's like a veritable who's who of ABM, and who's some really great, operators who are making it happen today. So really excited to pick their brains and really just share perspectives. In the past, the promise of ABM, certainly some wins. I've had some wins, but I've also had some times when the promise of it kind of has eluded me. I'm sure it's eluded some of you, due to whether it's inadequate technology support, process, overall approach. But I'm pretty encouraged with recent advances in technology, my own personal past experience and learnings, the experience and learnings of those on this panel. We believe there's some paths forward to cashing in on some of those original promises that were there. So by way of a little more formal introduction, I know I've kind of been sitting on it for a little while here, but I want to formally introduce, we'll call it casual, formal, casual, our guests today. So first off, we have Mason Cosby. He's the founder of Scrappy ABM. Yep. Wave, Mason. There you go. He's been helping teams launch high-impact ABM programs without the big budgets or bloated tech stacks. That's really where he focuses. I'm sure he'll give voice to that today. Katie Berg runs marketing at Klue, been doing so for a long time now. She's clearly in a flow state over there at Klue. Been running ABM programs there. What's up?
8 years. 8 years is like a million years at a startup.
You probably are the longest running CMO in B2B right now. We should do a poll on that.
Yeah.
You're single-handedly pulling up the average, right?
Skewing it.
Exactly. Now, something that we're going to dig in to a little bit with Katie later on is she's been really excited about this concept of scaling programs that drive pipeline while she and her team sleep. So just that's program stacking process. So excited to dig into that with her. And then Sangram Vajre literally wrote the books on ABM, go-to-market, co-founded Terminus, more recently GTM Partners, and really helped define the category that we're all kind of discussing today. On a personal note, this is actually a full circle moment for me with Sangram. When I stood at my first ABM program, I went out and bought, apparently, Sangram, you said that the ABM for Dummies is one of your highest selling materials you've got out there.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that one and Move, the one that I wrote later on in 2021. Apparently, it's like I get 2 cents every time somebody buys it. So it's it's popular, but it's a lot of it.
I'm glad I was able to contribute to your bottom line. So
yeah.
Well, welcome everybody. I want to just, to everybody who's on right now, I'm going to explain kind of where we're headed really quickly. Let me make sure that I'm sharing here. I'll just share my screen so everyone can see. Apologies, this was, yeah. Okay.
I did a whole presentation once and I didn't go into slideshow mode.
Yeah, no, at least I caught it like earlier on, right? Hold on one second.
So easy.
Can you all give a thumbs up when you can see my screen? Yep. Share screen. Oh, it says I'm sharing. Am I sharing?
You are sharing. Yeah.
Okay,
Just
good. Sorry.
Slideshow
It's not in slideshow mode. Yeah, it's just
all right, fair enough.
You can see the side rail. Whatever.
No worries. Yeah. I'll take my lumps there. So let's move on. I want to get us focused on really where we're headed. We've got 3 main topics that we're going to dig into with our panelists discussion today. If you're on with us as a visitor, you please drop your questions in the Q&A section in Zoom. There's a chat and there's the Q&A. I'm going to pull from Q&A at the end, not the chat. So feel free to ask questions in chat, but that's not where we're going to be hanging out to pull at the end. Okay. So let's jump into let's just jump straight in. Starting out, we want to begin kind of with the at the beginning of ABM earlier on. I want to discuss some of the challenges that existed with early stage ABM. You know, there's definitely some frustrations, right? These are some of them, you know, on the screen here. But I want to hear from the panelists now on kind of some of the challenges they've faced in the past with running ABM programs, or things that they observed in the past with running ABM programs. So my first question, Katie, so you've talked.
You're back on mute. I can't hear you.
Mattson, we lost you. Mattson, we lost you. People can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you, Kevin.
Let's drop it in the chat.
Yeah. He's asking a really profound question right now.
Points.
Oh no. I'll answer
Well,
it.
Yeah.
Oh, we lost you. We lost you for a second there.
Oh, I think actually. Oh no, my man.
Now you're fine. Now you're fine. So I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
No, my phone I think picked me up, and Siri was asking if I was trying to talk to her. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
So actually, what stands out to you as the biggest friction points or limitations in how you saw ABM implemented, either from first person perspective or from others, I guess in the past?
Sure. I'll start. Yeah, so I mean, when I started working at Klue, I was the only marketer. I wasn't the first marketer, but I was the only marketer on the team, and we had a couple of SDRs, so say like 2 different SDRs. So we were doing really like the scrappiest version of ABM that you could, and it was really a driver of what drew our growth for many years, actually. We had a simple target account list, a long list of say like 100 or so accounts, felt like a 1,000 at the time. We really didn't use any specific tech to support it, but we simply just had our SDR team choose 3 or 4 different accounts a week. They would do the research to find the right contacts, and then we would work together to send sort of a combined campaign to them through personalized outreach and email outreach and a paid program as well. And that worked, and that was scrappy. But where I think we started to find friction points was actually in that account management process itself. So, for example, we have this target list, but it didn't work well with how we were looking at intent signals. So we had 2 different processes. One was either the SDR was going to choose which accounts we were going to target for the week, or the other was we were looking at G2 and trying to take a look at what accounts were looking us up and run plays off that. And I think the flaw that we had there was based on the approach, there was a different challenge. If it was a marketing or intent-led account that we were looking at, sales never really trusted it. Sales didn't really know, and neither did we. Who was the person that was looking at Klue, right? Was it someone who was completely unqualified and would never be a buyer? Or was it like a really valuable contact based on the personas that we went after? So in reality, what happens there is we just kept having this like uphill fight where we're trying to make sure SDRs are following up on these accounts or that we're activating something, and they were not bought into the program or the process. And on the other side of things, when it was SDR led, we were targeting well to ICP, but we weren't making use of any of the intent signals that we could. So we didn't actually know if they were like in a buying process. So again, that's going to be not a super efficient way to work, and definitely not working together. The benefits are that you're identifying the right contacts in the companies, and you can sort of vet that they have the right roles and they look like a good fit ICP. You don't know if you're hitting them up at the right time. And so what we saw were these points that were these friction points that were really driven by how we were identifying the accounts to go after, how we were identifying the right contacts, and how we work together as marketing sales to actually activate those campaigns. So yeah, maybe that gives you a lens into some of the challenges that we had.
Awesome. No, my brain automatically goes to like resolution, right? And but like, let's hold off. We're gonna get there. But no, really appreciate your perspective there, Mason, Sangram. Like, I want to make sure this is an open conversation. Do you have anything to add? I mean, I have my own questions loaded for the two of you, so don't you worry. But like, are there any things you'd add, or just proverbial head nods, like, hey, this makes sense, or just curious to hear your perspective on what Katie shared here.
Mason, I know you're doing a lot on this thing, so why don't you give it a shot first?
And I was hoping you were going to take the first shot. No, I mean, at the end of the day, to Katie's point, like, and there's lots of signals that are happening, and you see someone that is looking at G2 or is on your website but isn't on the target account list. It's hard to figure out where to prioritize, because is it highest fit or is it highest intent? So that's one of the greatest challenges that we've seen with getting SDR buy-in long term, because SDRs are typically compensated based on actual meetings booked versus highest LTV. So even though our target account list may have been the most profitable customers for us to go for the long term, if you're compensated on the number of meetings you get, you're probably going to go there. So I resonate a lot. This week feels like sales and marketing week for me, so I've talked a lot about this. So I don't want to beat that drum too much today. But in short, it's easy to say, let's get marketing and sales aligned and let's go after the best accounts. But if you don't actually look at how people are compensated and their incentives, and you just say, we'll go after these accounts, incentive structures or compensation structures are just that. They incentivize the right behaviors. And sometimes when you go to ABM, the behaviors change, but the compensation doesn't. And as a result, people don't buy in as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add into that is I think ABM, and I can go Jordan Peterson on this. Like, what do you mean by promise? And just dig into what that exactly means and wonder about that for a second, because there was a lot of the word promise of ABM. When I think about when I wrote the book, and all I wanted to do at that time was to find a way for marketing to recognize that sales closes accounts, and giving them leads is no longer the way to get their attention. So the whole idea of account based was to get everybody on the same page with this, using the same language, and that was the whole thrust of it. That was the whole initial reason why. And it and being calling it, and there were obviously versions of it before, but account based marketing was because marketing still is the most strategic thinker in the room for the most part, because marketing is thinking about long term, short term, strategically about which accounts, this campaign, that quarter, as opposed to being coin operated for that particular month to hit the goals. So that was the promise. That was my personal view on it. What is the promise was get sales and marketing aligned on a common language so they can all focus on accounts, and then marketing be the facilitator of the process. And I think for me, with the promise, using that to answer that question more, has been failing for long periods of time, is that it has become a get rich quick scheme. So it's like, oh, you're launching ABM, you should see results in the next 2 weeks. And if anyone has done any amount of ABM, and Katie, you killing it for 8 years being at Klue and making it happen. Mason, you launching Scrappy ABM literally on the backs of helping companies not overspend but deliver results. I think it's not a get rich quick scheme. It is literally you can get quick alignment, is important, because it will force you to do that. And the measurement is really milestones, not necessarily deals closed, because B2B is not just selling $10 seats. So how do you create milestones on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly basis that actually shows progress of engagement, intention, and more buyers into it? And if you're not tracking those kind of things, it feels like this program never actually succeeded. And that's why people fail too early without really looking at the real metrics of the business, has been the broken promise for me all along.
Really appreciate that perspective, and you definitely got a unique one there.
That's what you get when you are at it for like 10 years.
10 years. Right. No, I liked how you said there's space for quick alignment, but then like, what do you do after that, right? Like you can, anybody can get in a room, punch out, Katie mentioned, early on in their, in her tenure there, 100 accounts or 1,000 accounts or your 500 accounts. You draw a circle around them and say, yes, those are important. But it's like, how do you actually drive results there? And if the incentives aren't right, if that's not there, then yeah, things fall apart. Sangram, I want to come back to you about kind of what led you to maybe expanding. Like you mentioned marketing. Like I loved your reasoning behind like the marketing. Like why is marketing there? In that account-based acronym, but you have expanded your perspective more recently to like be more GTM holistic, and I want to like touch on that later. Mason, coming back to you, we've kind of touched on this a little bit with like, especially this quick get rich quick scheme, but tools as a stopgap for like strategy. I know you work with a lot of teams. You've seen a lot of teams approach it by saying, hey, we're going to go buy this tool. Like this is kind of how this is foundational to your entire agency, right? And how you guys work with customers saying, hey, you don't need to go out and buy these tools. But like, why do you think so many programs fail to deliver, with that approach, even when like maybe they technically had an ABM motion in place?
Yeah. When I look primarily at the tooling and technology, it was a tech first approach versus looking at the strategy first. And I know that a lot of people say that. I want to unpack what that bundled language means.
Please, yeah, I do.
So when we talk about strategy first, what we do for all of our clients is we look at all of the current programs and we look at their current team capabilities and their current technology. And we say, let's launch an account-based program with this, because there will be 100 other problems that will pop up. Like that is not a complete solution. But right now, what people experience when they go to build an ABM program and they buy all the technology first is they think the problem is they don't have an ABM program and that the solution is building an ABM program. When in reality, the problem is marketing and sales isn't aligned. We don't have our best fit customers that are actually consistently and repeatedly getting in the door. So let's build a strategy to do that. And then as we do that, we'll determine things like, oh, we don't actually have great tracking at the awareness level, or, oh, the ability to activate the SDR team isn't as strong as we would like it to be, or we don't actually have repeatable processes for once a customer is in the door on how we ascend them into an upsell offer and continue to expand them. So the goal, as I think through it, is build a strategy first and then identify 100 other problems, but then you can specifically solve those problems, which then give you that incremental progress. One final thought, and then I'll get back to the tech side, is I picked this phrase up in the past year and a half, which is businesses die due to half-built bridges. So what we're trying to do is actually complete a bridge. So how do we get an account from awareness into problem recognition? Like that's one bridge. Then how do you then from problem recognition into trying to identify viable solutions? And then once they identify viable solutions, how do we get them to truly consider us as a solution for their unique challenges? All of those are individual bridges that all of our accounts have to go through at different stages. But again, if we buy the technology, and what often happens is we just kind of throw it at one person and say, you're the ABM manager. So like you can just do ABM, right? And we think that by buying the technology, we've enabled them, when in reality, ABM is just like a bunch of people and process related things to get everybody on the same page and moving the same direction. So if you just promote one person, so look at who's typically promoted. It's typically someone from sales that's not done marketing previously, and they're promoted into an ABM role, thrown a bunch of technology, and just told do ABM. And they were set up for failure from the beginning. So again, that's why I think that many ABM programs, when they just go tech first, end up failing, is they think the technology is the solver, the silver bullet, when it was never designed. It's an enablement to scale it, not to build it.
Yeah, really love that. I love the bridge analogy. I'm probably going to come back to that because you're talking about taking an account from A to B to C to Z, right? Within that account, there are individual people that help you. Like when you're trying to influence an account, they each play a part in a role in like a buying decision, right? So I'd love to dig into like how you break that down, right? You blow out that bridge into like individual people. Hold that thought. Sangram, I wanted to come back to you really quick. Like I said, you wrote some of the books on ABM here. At some point, in the more recent history, you've kind of expanded and really been pushing like full GTM alignment, which isn't a crazy thought, right? Like GTM should be aligned, right? But like, I guess what was the is it maybe this is the wrong framing, and you tell me, but was there a point at which, and what was that point where you realized that, hey, like ABM's important, but like I guess is ABM and GTM alignment, are these things separate? Are they part of the same? Like, what was the moment where you kind of start to expand your thinking and your writing, and your approach? And now you're at GTM Partners, right? So just curious,
Yep.
like, was there a moment where you kind of realized, oh, like maybe something's off or needs to change? Curious.
Well, it's really a series of unfortunate events and and experiences is really what I would say. But like when I ran marketing at Pardot, like this literally all of this is literally an experiential thing. I remember a sales leader coming to me and asking for more leads, and I'm like, we just gave you 30,000 leads. I don't know how many more leads do you want? And he's like, well, you're in marketing, I'm in sales. I told you so. Give me leads. So I'm like, all right, I'm a coin operated lead machine. Got it. I'm out of here. So that led to start Terminus and account bases. Like there got to be a better way as a marketer to do what we do as a job. And just saying we want a seat at the revenue table is not good enough if we continue to stay in this lead hamster wheel. So that's the genesis of ABM and Terminus and account-based marketing. And I love, Mason, what you said. I think most of the technology during the build-up of my last company, Terminus and others, it did phenomenal. It does phenomenal thing, right? You can look at it at the account level and all of it, but without strategy, you're just spending crazy amount of money on something that you probably can run out of spreadsheet. Because ABM, for the most part, unless you see initial success, people are going to feel like you're just wasting time, the way it operates. And then at Terminus, what happened towards we grew 1, 5, 15, 50 million in revenue, but we had initially churn issue as you're building. And I thought, well, customer success sucks. They don't know how to keep customers and they don't know whatever. And then come to find out, like, no, we actually were not thinking about it. It's a new category. So lots of people are trying it, and therefore retention is a hard thing. And you have to think about it the right way. You're not even getting the right ICP in the funnel to do that. So that evolved into like, well, what is the real problem? And what I found out in 20 years of mistakes is you're really a business. You don't really have a marketing problem. So a marketing just solves for it. If marketing could solve everything, then why would we need any other departments? But typically it's not a marketing problem or a sales problem or even a customer success problem, like I thought. It's actually a go-to-market problem. It's a business problem. And that led to writing the third book I wrote, which is Move, the go-to-market framework book. And it was really a recognition of the fact that any of these things in isolation would never make sense, will never deliver the promise, never give the results. But if they actually work together, and even if it's a half-baked idea, like Katie was talking about, but if it's aligned and everybody's on the same side, then you actually have a better chance of winning than a brilliant idea and a brilliant campaign, but everybody's doing it differently. You have no chance to win. So that's what really forced me to think about go to market. And then when I was working with Henry at Zoom Info, they just changed their, I don't know if everybody saw that, but they just changed their ticker symbol to GTM from ZI, which tells us that this is a real thing, that go to market is the business for a publicly traded company as they're thinking about it. And so GTM is starting to become, to me, the way you do business and not the way you do a particular tactic.
It's interesting as you're saying that, I start to understand or get a peek into your own evolution of thinking, or I think I do.
Yeah.
I view ABM very much as a channel that serves like our strategic purposes, right? We're using it so that we can control who we are targeting to make sure that we're targeting the right accounts that can efficiently move through our funnel, that will stay with us long term and grow. And that becomes a way that we are driving long-term success for a company. That's very much like our go-to-market strategy.
Yeah.
But I totally see that. I hadn't really made that connection for you and your evolution sort of in what you've done, but now I get it. That was my experience at Klue too.
Yeah.
Was we started with an ABM program that's meant to drive leads, that's meant to drive pipeline. And as I've stayed at the company longer, I think it's good as a marketing leader. like what I'm thinking about and prioritizing has shifted to be longer and longer looking, right? So first it went, I need to hit pipeline numbers, not just a lead number. And then I said, no, we need to hit revenue numbers. And we're going to hit revenue numbers by bringing in the right type of pipeline. So now we report out on, we have like a tiering for our accounts by ICP fit. And we measure ourselves on the density of like tier 1 AB, so good fit ICP. We measure not just our total pipeline, but the percentage of what is like that top notch ICP. So we're aiming now for a 70 to 80% fit there. Not perfect, but like I like this idea of we're trying to not just drive pipeline, but pipeline that can close
Yeah.
and hit our revenue targets.
Yep.
And like for me in the future as well, it's thinking we base that ICP based on the customers that stick with us and that grow with us. So now I'm trying to influence where we're at next year and where we're at 2 years from
Yeah.
now. Because
Yeah.
you know how much easier my life becomes as a marketing leader when we do not have to continue churning and bringing in new customers, but we're actually holding them and we're growing them because we brought in the right ones from the beginning. Like that's where I think every marketing leader should be thinking. So
Yeah.
that's go-to-market strategy in the way that you're framing it, Sangram, I believe. But like that's also the way that every marketing leader, I believe, needs to be thinking. And ABM as an approach becomes a great way to do that and to control the future of your business through what you control in marketing or in sales.
Yeah. And I'll just say one real quick thing. I think, and I love that you picked up on that, is like it's really a mental evolution for me of 2 decades of just being trying to fix a problem and finding another problem, and it's like peekaboo, like what do we do? So and this is when we have kids. That's the kind of phrasing that comes to mind. But the real change happened for me personally was when I understood NRR, net revenue retention.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know in the chat, like if people can hear chat and if somebody wants to just type, who tracks NRR and just maybe just drop it in the chat. That was, as a co-founder at Terminus, that was the time when I realized that, oh my gosh, I don't even know the business of marketing. I understand the business. I understand how to market it. ABM is a way of marketing the business, but I don't understand the business of marketing, which is what is my job for the business. And NRR was that thing. So NRR, for people who don't know, and if you're not tracking, you should, otherwise you'll be fired in the next 6 months, or if your company goes, then you will know why, is because your NRR is not close to 100 or 120%. That was literally the shift, the one, like Matt, as we was talking about, like what is the main trigger beyond just the evolution of thinking, is that when I saw that, oh my gosh, if I don't have as a company a 120% NRR, we are losing money and we are literally killing ourselves to close deals and all the gongs that we close when you have deals. But instead, if I had NR of 120%, our business will double in 3.8 years. And worse, this is the worst part that nobody thinks about. If our NRR is 75, 80, 90%, you're going to kill yourself in the next 18 to 24 months. People don't think about this, and therefore I see people boasting about, I created a $25 million pipeline and the next week they're let go. Well, because to Katie's point, maybe they were not the right ICP to begin with. So I think NRR is a big part of the whole puzzle.
This has been really a really great deep dive into that specific transition, your thinking. And Katie, thank you for sharing your like boots on the ground perspective, like your lived experience of that. So really appreciate this. Want to transition a little bit to kind of we've kind of been doing it a little bit already. So appreciate that softball by everybody here. But transition a little bit to talking about present state. We've been talking about accounts, and I think each of us have mentioned it one way or another that yes, you close accounts, right? Like that's what it shows up on the, in your Slack, your win channel, close X account, right? But within that account, there are a host of different people, and depending on the complexity of the deal, that can range anywhere from 3 to 5 people to 30 to 50, literally 30 people on an entire, who are actually influencing a deal over the course of time. So, one of the shifts and that's more complex than just tracking a single entity, right? And I think that this concept is implicit in what we've been talking about. But I think we are starting to see a shift on yes, we have account intelligence, but now we're getting like person level signals and person level intelligence. And I want to kind of talk a little bit about some of that shift and how that is maybe impacting teams' ability to execute. We talk about sales and marketing alignment, right? We close accounts, but we got to chase people, right? Like you got to chase the real thing. You have to have people, right? So well, I want to start first. Mason, you've been quiet for a little while. You've been head nodding vigorously. I see you. I see you there, man. But I know you've got things to share. So I want to come to you for this next question. I know that you've worked with a lot of teams who, in the past maybe have used, and this is, by the way, like, let me clarify. I'm not saying third-party intent isn't useful at all. It has a use, right? But there's a pairing that needs to happen. It's the pairing between account and person that is really important. But you've worked with teams that have vague firmographic third-party signals, and now teams have access to more, right? So how are the teams you're working with now, like some of the best teams that you're working with, combining like these person level signals with account level, and like what does that unlock in the playbook? And not to say that we never were focused on people, but like there's just so much more richness that we kind of have at our fingertips with this person level stuff. So curious to get your perspective on that shift and how some of the things that are working for teams you work with.
I mean, Katie already alluded to it a little bit earlier, but when we talk about who do we prioritize for SDRs, it's just, well, I have this account that's surging on intent, but that intent was typically black boxed. So I don't actually know what that intent meant or what they were searching or who account was surging. And often, like, it's still not even close to perfect, but it's better. But at the end of the day, like, we had a lot of data, and some of that data was shaky on the trustworthiness at best. And as a result, if you as a marketer are going to sales and saying these accounts are red hot, and then they call and it's icy cold, you've lost your credibility. So that's one of the broken promises that I think we had a lot with intent data. And what we're seeing now is because of person level intent or person level engagement tracking, it's a lot easier. Like we have website de-anonymation on our website. So one, we have playbooks that are for pre-pipeline that our sales team runs that are to engage them in ways that are not directly book a meeting. And I want to be super clear. We don't say like, sure, you check out the website, but we run content like this. We run a lot of webinars and educational sessions, and we design our sessions around past objections that we've heard previously. So we just run content monthly. So our salesperson invites people into ways of actually engaging and learning. So that's pre-pipeline as a way of generating pipeline. And then when it comes to in-cycle, which is a side note, marketing teams, please run in-cycle programs. Like huge opportunity there. It's always really fun when we see the CFO show up on our website because we know that that's a serious buyer. So that's how I'm seeing a lot of the changes as we're looking at the ability to actually see CFO is here, chief legal, IT, that are typically historically blockers for our buyers are actually showing up on our website. We can see what they're engaging with and what they actually care about based on the content that we're producing. And directly, again, we try to create content that overcomes past objections so that we can then send that to them. That's super insightful and also allows us to effectively prioritize where they're spending their time on their deals. So at the highest level, just the ability to even know that much is a game changer if, sorry to use the word orchestration, but like if orchestrated well in a way that's easy for our sales teams to effectively action.
Yeah, I love how you brought up this concept of like triangulating like the dots, right? It's not about like a singular dot or the amorphous like account level dot. It's about connecting the CFOs here. We also have users in the product. We had somebody show up to a webinar. Like it's all connecting all these things and saying, what does this like? Does this constitute an initiative? Does this constitute a project? Like where are they at in the journey, right? Does it look like it's heating up, right? We work with at Common Room. We serve a lot of developer companies, right, with open source repositories. They have and lots of people are in there jamming on the open source. But does that mean it's intent? Well, not necessarily. But if you start to see those same people start poking around on your pricing page or start poking around on like how do I I might want to move my project to production, and then you start to see, someone more senior show up to your website. It's like being able to triangulate those things and say, okay, we have this person level information. What's the story that this tells us, and how should we react as a team? So I love that, Mason. Katie, you've been doing this for a while. I know your team is getting recently like really tight on, not that you weren't in the past, but really recently really tight on your ICP, right? You narrowed, I think even this year, like really started focusing on a specific ICP that you wanted to drive awareness for. And you've been even more focused on contact level behaviors and engagement tracking. Would love to hear some practical examples of like what are some of the things you are all doing, if you have them. Like what are some of the plays or signals you're using as a case in point. And then if you have seen others that you admire, like things that they're using to create this relevant outreach and touch, I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, for sure. So at the beginning of this year, we made the decision to just totally revamp and focus every single thing we do around like this small specific list of ICP accounts. So all of our marketing that we do right now is essentially account-based marketing to some level, right? And I really believe in this. And so we started by first building these lists. We've made some new sort of requirements based on their tech stack that's super connected to our product and our product direction. So I think there was a question in the chat earlier that was about how do you like replenish these account lists? And that's an interesting one because to me, who we go after, like I said, needs to be a good fit customer. It also needs to be the right fit customer for where our product is headed. So that's where, as like a marketing leader, you're connecting to your product strategy and getting a really good understanding of what are we building and what, based on what we're building, who do we unlock in terms of who we can serve really well. So we define this ICP based on both current sort of what we do today and the understanding of what we're doing in like the near term future and who that product is going to best serve. So we've actually shifted more towards our product of the future. I don't know. There's probably so many companies right now going under or undergoing a huge amount of AI transformation. And it creates this really interesting scenario where you're looking at your customer base and saying, who's the right customer for who we have been and for who we will be and where our product is headed, and are they the same thing? So we're pretty intentionally trying to build a customer base for like our future product that's coming out over the next couple of quarters, thinking a year, 2 years from now, we're going to be well served by that, even if that's not necessarily the ICP we've used in the past. So there's like an interesting sort of bet that's happening, and like because it's all a little bit untested, but it's based on product capabilities. So we've redefined this list, and now we are tracking all of these accounts, these specific accounts, based on different intent signals, and obviously getting a really specific list of contacts for whether they are changing job, or previous champions changing a job, whether they're researching our competitors, whether they're looking at different levels of like product intent or different things within our own categories that we operate in. So that's now triggering automatically. This is what I really love is like now we have these campaigns we can start stacking on each other of if someone is looking up, this category of product, or they're looking up Klue specifically, the outreach play, the SDR play is going to be XYZ. We send that into a campaign. The like paid sort of content play, marketing play is going to be XYZ assets, whatever that we're going to put in front of them. And we do that one campaign at a time. And now my goal and what we like to have is we always have these campaigns that are acting for us while we sleep, always focused on our top accounts. And then my marketing team can focus on what are the lightning strike moments of what we can do within the quarter that are really going to help us grow our brand and our market awareness, and what are like those big moves that they want to focus all their time on. And the more that we can stack these plays and fine tune them, that's great, because as a leader, it gives us more certainty that we're going to hit our pipeline targets without having to like focus on what are we doing this week to get there. And then we open up and expand our opportunities to think really creatively, which I think is where memorable marketing happens. I guess my other take on how we've approached our ABM campaigns differently now than in the past is not only to look at how the system allows us to get at the person level, but to think about how our campaigns themselves are driven by by people. What I mean by that is Common Room actually does a really good job of this. It inspired us. We did a demo of Common Room, I don't know, like 6 months ago, something like that. And immediately after that, I think I had mentioned we were looking at some competitors. Immediately after that, I start seeing content from thought leadership content from key executives from the Common Room team. I didn't even know that they were like promoted posts, right? I'm just like consuming content on LinkedIn and scrolling. And I found they were so effective in influencing me and teaching me something. And so we've taken that same approach. We use key content from people across our own executive team to
Mhm.
get in front of different specific roles within the accounts we're going after. So thinking about buying committees, like you mentioned, we have people on our team that we would share their content in front of a sales leader, and a marketing leader might see content from me. And right, like we really align what they're going to see based on who they are. And then we also use key influencers in our industry and do the same thing. So if we're working with a champion at a certain role, we're going to push content from specific influencers in front of them as well. So we're trying to take like a person first approach, not in just who we contact and how we contact them, but also in the campaigns itself, which has been a lot of fun.
Gosh, like so much goodness there. And I'll plus big heavy +1 to your point on thought leader ads. There's a plug for that. That's been huge. Showing up in as organically as we can as marketers, right? From a paid standpoint, but it's been really great to see the engagement with that. And then for me, like if I know that if you're really confident in your list, that counts. If you're really confident in the people you've mapped within that account, then you can be super confident in the message you're putting in front of them. And then you can just max frequency, like get that in front of them as much as we can, right? Because you know you're not off base, you know you're not turning people off. Obviously, you want to rotate things in, but you want to see what is. And I've really loved just um, mining that information to figure out what should we be marketing, right? What should we be shifting our messaging? Like what messaging is resonating, right? Because you have some things like you have your core messaging. And Katie, you talked about this adjacent customer, that next customer, especially today with AI, it's like churn and burn right now. It's like, okay, we got to figure out what's next. You have your core customer, but then you have your adjacent customer, and you might discover little pockets of like demand or engagement with different topics that allow you to go, oh, like that might actually be a good customer for us, right? Like this is a completely different set of needs. Anyway, really interesting. Love to that point to finish off. So, Sangram, any thoughts on kind of what's been shared here? Like I think you've already. I was going to ask you a little bit more about kind of just navigating, helping teams work together, the go-to-market alignment piece. But you've kind of touched on that already. Anything else to add to kind of what Katie or Mason has shared about kind of like present state? Any extra
Well,
thoughts?
there is maybe just a couple of points. This is more the macro because at Go-to-Market Partners, we're primarily a research firm, so I spend a lot of time just seeing, and I enjoy, like clearly, creating frameworks and looking at what's around the corners. So one is I do believe, and we have written a lot about this recently around that there is a tremendous rise of service as a software model, and that's going to continue to grow. The software as a service model where somebody's going to go buy, to Mason's point, $100,000 software that have 3 people on the team, so that's another 200,000. So let's say 300,000, a multi-year deal, which is now you're at a $500,000 investment in a ABM product or a platform, and what you might want to do, and half of the time turnover, people not using it. Now it's a really bad business model if you really think about it from a CFO perspective when you're looking at capex versus opex expense. Instead, getting somebody like Scrappy ABM or someone who knows what they're doing, you know immediately if they're going to tell us this is good, bad. You can hold their feet to the fire to say, show me results, whatever that might mean, and align on it. And 6 months from now, if it doesn't work, well, okay, I just spend like 10, 15K a month for 6 months, and there you have it. But so there's a huge change is happening right now for all these big organizations to no longer have the pricing strategies completely getting uprooted left and right across the board, and rise of services, software is a real thing. That's one as a macro trend that supports what some of the stuff we're talking about. The other thing I wrote down, I think Katie, you mentioned about systems, and I'm a big fan of James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, and his quote that I seldom use and think about, which is, "You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." I absolutely love that quote because all of us want to be fit. All of us want to be financially free. All of us want to have, life, health, all that blessing. But only 1% do it. And it's the same thing with everything that we're talking about. Only 1% are going to be successful in ABM or anything like that, is because they all probably have the same goals: more pipeline, more revenue, more better NRR. Like, nobody's saying, I want to lose more. I want to have less deals. I want to have no pipeline. Nobody's talking about that. But why is it? And I think that the issue is that most companies don't have a system, not tools, but a system, a process of doing things. And therefore, like, I'm a big believer of frameworks. And like, we have the go-to-market operating system to help companies think about, when it's focused on very much on ABM, the team framework that some of you may be familiar with, the target oriented thing. So using some sort of system that holds you accountable to it is absolutely important to get aligned, see results, change course if need to. But most organizations don't do that, and that's a big miss.
Yeah. No, that's pretty big. I mean, I appreciate your perspectives on that, and I want to maybe transition over to Q&A. We've got 13 minutes or so before the top of the hour. I want to make sure that we're able to get into some audience questions. I think we've actually kind of blended two things, which is actually pretty. We kind of blended, the shift we're seeing to present state. So I think I would like to just dig into what people are wondering here. So let me look quickly. Let's see here. I think
I can help out because I've been kind
Kevin,
of
do you have one?
curating
Yeah, nice. Appreciate it.
the questions a little bit. We got a really interesting one here. Actually, let's just ask the AI question, because I feel like people like want to hear about, like, oh, how's AI doing things with ABM? So someone just asked. I think I answered it already, but it was just over text. But like, I'm curious what the group thinks of just how AI is changing, the ABM landscape, or go-to-market motion, or whatever. I don't know if whoever wants to take that.
I've been thinking a lot about this, admittedly, because I had a conversation with some of the developers over at Agent AI about developing an agentic product, and we were walking through our 6-week onboarding process. And like, oh yeah, we could do all those data analysis in about 30 seconds instead of 6 weeks. I was like, oh, cool. So like, I've got to figure out AI, because I think that the agency model that doesn't implement AI won't exist anymore. So as I think about it, I look a lot about targeting. So specifically, one of the most helpful things that we did for our own business is a full LTV to CAC analysis based on ease of delivery, profitability, CAC payback periods, and then measuring that up against a market size. And normally that would take a lot more time, but it took me about 8 hours to compile all the data and then build out a scoring model and then upload that into something as simple as a chat GPT that then spit out a weighted, these are your best customers and here's the rationale, and these are your worst customers and here's the rationale. And then also allowed me to play with variables based on their current length of commitments. So that's something that is available today, that allows you to actually more easily analyze your data. Now, I want to be super clear: if you're using chat, like, go turn off your settings to turn it off so they don't use your data for training their LLMs. But like, that's relatively easy and simple. There are many, many, many products, some of them I'm exploring, where you can actually just upload SOPs and it will actually start to develop agentic products. I actually met with an AI company on Monday that is going to look at how they can turn all of our standardized processes to the best of our ability into things that AI can execute on our behalf, that we then, instead of doing 36 hours of data analysis or content auditing, run something through an AI agent that has our SOPs, and then at the end we loop in a human to validate and verify. So as I think about, Sangram, to your point around systems, if you've done ABM well, you've developed incredible systems and processes that should be repeatable. What AI can often do is take those systems and processes and make sure that they're repeated perfectly every time, at which point you can then bring a human in the loop at the end or in the middle to consistently pulse check and make sure that it's headed in the right direction. So I that's where I think AI is going. To like really make this real, I was looking at hiring a third team for our ABM implementation programs in January, and I'm likely kicking that next batch of hires to June to instead invest in seeing how we can do better AI implementation. So just in case you're wondering, like that's how I see it is coming into reality.
Scoring and scaling the good systems you've already built. Got it. Katie or Sangram, do you guys want to take that, or do you want to jump to another one? Any thoughts? Yeah.
I could build on that just very quickly. We rolled out a new org structure to our marketing team just this morning. That was maybe kind of similar. So the idea of how we're approaching it is function by function within marketing. So we have product marketing and demand gen and brand, and each role now has like a subject matter expert or the functional leader paired with a go-to-market engineer. And the idea, and that's just like your AI builder. And they're not always net new people. Often we're seeing it's like there's someone on the team that is scrappy building, working in Gumloop, working in whatever, naturally testing and exploring. And I wanted to intentionally share a different org structure because it needs to shake up the way we work. If we're trying to add AI onto our plates as like the 20th thing, it will never get done. So we're doing a couple of things, and a new org structure shakeup. The idea being your engineer, your go-to-market engineer, is building a custom GPT to help with your product launches, or a custom GPT to help with your executive content production. And the subject matter expert acts as like the feedback loop. So we're looking at a product launch GPT that we built, and we're looking at the output of a blog post that it drafted, and the subject matter expert says, I don't like that framework that we're using actually. And they'll give them a new framework for that content. And then go-to-market engineer goes and reverse engineers that into the sort of thinking that project GPT has. So anyways, that's like the approach. And each team now has someone assigned to building and someone assigned to be the strategic sort of leader and prioritizer, which is cool. And now we're also putting Fridays aside because Fridays we build. On Fridays now we build. And I think that's also important to make sure we're carving time and space to prioritize changing how we work. And then the simple way that we build our AI roadmaps is like literally listing out a list of jobs to be done within our functions and keeping it as simple as possible. If we are just going to take one task, one job at a time, and build a unique GPT or purpose-built GPT to support that, and we'll have 100 disconnected GPTs, I'm very comfortable with that. I think in the future, we'll figure out how to connect them or consolidate them or integrate all these systems together. But if I try to get into the matrix too much and overthink it, we stop doing work and we stop just testing. So that was sort of the mandate, was this new structure, this forced time for us to play, experience, explore, and work. And then the simple, just like, look, build, start simple, and we will evolve from there. That's it for us.
Yeah.
I like the just the acceptance of the chaos a little bit, right? I think a lot of great opportunities die on the hill of like, let's normalize, let's scale this. Like, no, like let's just do the very next thing. We'll deal with the chaos when it hits, because that will be a champagne problem at that point. It should be, hopefully. So awesome, love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, brand. I think there's a brand influencer question, and I think that's another really good one to hit on because it is having a heyday, and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon with just like trends in the market. So let me actually pull this question up. Okay, let's see here.
Yeah, I can help out. It was like an interesting one. It was like, how does ABM and this topic relate to brand marketing? It's hard to track, but it seems like it's having a heyday right now. I think that's referring to brand marketing. It seems like maybe a Katie question, but I don't know who wants to take that. But yeah, curious what you guys think about brand and how brand ties into ABM.
Well, I mean, I just
Yeah, I don't want to.
yeah pick like really quick. I think in the go-to-market operating system and the book, we kind of tried to push this forever as a marketer. I had to fight the war of where should we invest question from the executive team, brand or demand. And over the course of last 2 decades of thinking through this is that actually brand drives demand is where we ended up. And therefore, if you look at the go-to-market operating system, we don't break it up into brand and demand, brand or demand. It's brand and demand as one thing. And to the point of Katie talking about thought leadership ads, that is brand that is clearly driving demand, which is why she is investing a lot more on that, and it's working. And that's the future, where it won't be faceless. It actually will be something that you want to look at. And then the other part on that ties to the AI part is I do truly believe that AI is in the stone age of innovation right now. So everything that we're seeing, doing, thinking about is so mediocre. In the next 6 months, we would be like, oh my gosh, did you believe that we were talking about this 6 months ago? It would be like crazy because of how quickly it's maturing and how people are modeling around it. So it's smart to just keep testing and looking at it. And the biggest move that I'm seeing is that in the future, nobody would really remember or create user interfaces because they won't really matter. Nobody needs to create that. Any and everybody in a company should be logging into their own company chat GPT and ask any question they want because AI doesn't care about your feelings. AI does not have silos. AI doesn't care about marketing getting attribution or sales. So that's the beauty of using AI. So at 2 p.m. or 2 a.m., if the CEO wants to figure out where the pipeline is or a sales rep wants to figure out, they should be able to just ask that question to the internal chat GPT and get a clear answer and see all of it without ever logging into any marketing automation, campaign, CRM, or whatever it is that you have or not. That's where the future. So the interfaces are just going to not exist in the future, and we will literally talk as if you're talking and having a conversation.
Yeah, there's so many implications, and I'm sure everybody's doing some serious introspection on that one. And Kevin and I were just jamming on this the other day in our one-on-one. We were just chatting about like do you have to just to reimagine like what is the core job to be done and what would that look like getting done within like a single window, right? Like that's the real estate you have, right?
But I was chatting last too, like the like compression of like time to value like just happens so much faster when you're when that's the experience on the end user. So it's a very interesting topic that we probably don't want to get us down that route.
Yeah, that's another next time. Sangram, stay tuned. You might see another invite.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say one quick thing on AI is like, look, AI can also create new products within products. So you see and imagine through ABM and all, it can track every single task, activity, and whatnot. So imagine it actually looking at it, seeing everything, coming back and recommending a product, then creating a prototype, testing it, and actually then you go build it or use it. So products are going to create products in the future and see how that works. So, and ABM is at the forefront of it because you can only do that when you know the accounts that you're trying to focus on.
Yep. I think I want to finish by the penultimate, I guess. Katie, I'll give you a chance to just address this head on, this influencer marketing thing. It's a specific question. I want to make sure you have a chance to address that, and then we'll probably finish off. So, and yeah, the question, I'm not sure if you saw it in the chat, but basically, how do you measure this influencer play that you're talking about? I think you mentioned using thought leader ads and these other, influencer program components. How are you tracking it as it relates to your total account-based strategy?
Yeah, that's a good question. Kevin, you might have a better answer than me on this,
Well,
actually.
yeah, it's actually Matson that does it, but like when we have a big influencer program, but then the way we actually measure it is just from self-reported attribution. So we ask how people heard about us, and we see correlation with influencers and like and people mentioning LinkedIn, but then sometimes people actually mention by name, and so it gives us just like a pretty nice triangulation of like because a lot of times we'll see that those people look like they're coming from direct or organic, Google organic, or even now LLM traffic. And so like we've set up this system to kind of like listen for that on self-reported attribution and then try and report out on it, but it's not an exact science by any means.
Yep, we do the exact same. So it's self-reported. Just in this last week, we had some programs happening and a bunch of people came in requesting a demo reporting, self-reporting, like what influencers that they had heard us through, which is always helpful that you can actually measure something. I mean, sometimes you're just making calls based on what you think is a good approach as a marketer. There's like a bit of gut to it sometimes. I don't know how to say that on a webinar and whatever, like leave me alone. I think that's true. But if you wanted to get really metric driven, you could probably run either like a randomized controlled trial or some sort of an A/B test where you use that approach versus not on a set of accounts and like see the uplift. But sometimes it's just intuition and vibe, what you and your judgment as a leader.
Yeah, I think intuition is built up over time, right? And yeah, I think we'd all be lying if we said we didn't go off of vibes at times, right? So yeah, for sure. Hey, this has been truly fun. This has been a fun conversation. Wish we had another 30 minutes. We don't. We live in a time constrained world. So thank you everybody for joining. One last plug. Common Room does exist. We didn't talk about it here, but this was the right conversation to have. Did just want to say that we've talked a lot about shifting to person level, combining person level and account level. If you are grappling with some of these questions around how do we, run account-based programs at scale, we're a URL away at commonroom.io. So please hit us up if you have questions. And thanks again, Mason, Katie, Sangram. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks all. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye-bye.